before the world judged them. I
You know what I'm saying? Like, and then the nigga act like,
Let's see what this nigga done
to
done.
survive the pain.
Kevin Hart does a $1 billion licensing deal for his name.
if you didn't file with TurboTax last year, no matter your tax
What does that
situation,
mean?
Forced in
file your taxes.
darkness, chasing a light they
saying
weren't
that Kevin Hart
supposed
inked a deal to
to
license a
touch.
licensing deal for his name.
They don't know it yet, but their love
Have
rewrites
y'all heard
every
about
rule
this?
heaven never made. And now the gates of Eden open again. This is their story. My story of Eden.
Inks a licensing deal for his name.
Kevin Hart inks a licensing deal for his name. The star will become a shareholder in IP giant
Even sinners can be
Authentic
chosen.
Brands and co-manage the Kevin Hart brand alongside the company, which has rights to David Beckham and Shaquille O'Neal. So wait a minute, they got rights to license David Beckham and Shaquille O'Neal also?
What does that mean?
All right, let me see.
What does that mean?
Kevin Hart, the actor and comedian, wants Kevin Hart, the brand, to outlive his career in Hollywood. Hart on Tuesday inked a wide-ranging deal with Authentic Brands Group, giving the IP licensing giant rights to his name, with Hart becoming a shareholder in the firm. So, part of his deal, according to this, is that instead of him just taking money, he became a shareholder in the company. So he took a value proposition for his name instead of just taking money. So a lot of times when people, and let me tell you what that means, right? A lot of times when people do a deal, let's just say, for example, you're doing an advertising or a branding deal. They'll take the money. So let's say a company says, hey man, we paying such and such this amount of money, such and such this amount of money per year in order for them to endorse our shoes. That's a much different play than maybe a Jordan, right? So a Jordan said, well, I don't really just want the money, I want equity. And part of the reason why that makes sense is not just because you think that the value of the brand is going to go up, but it's also for tax purposes. So let's say, for example, if somebody said, all right, Kevin Hart, I'm gonna give you $1 billion for your name if this is completely true, to license your name. Well, what happens is that billion operates just like the lottery. You know how people say, man, I want $1 billion in a lottery, but I really only got $390 million because they hit me with taxes? Well, Kevin Hart, if that's true, then he understands the value of his name, but he also understands the value of being able to have an investment in it. And so he says, I want stock. And taking stock means that you don't have to pay the capital gains or you don't have to pay the taxes on it until you sell. And if you're a bag chaser, you also know that you can borrow against your stock tax-free. You can borrow against the stock tax-free. So let's say, for example, that I have equity in X company, right? I have equity in this company. Mark Zuckerberg owns Facebook, but Mark Zuckerberg don't really got no cash. That's why we care more about assets than we care about money. Most ignorant people care about money versus caring about assets. When you get to a certain point, we don't care about money. We only care about assets because assets allow for us to generate more money and it allows for us to have a better tax strategy, all right? So Mark Zuckerberg, he awards himself and his companions and his compadres. He says, listen, guys, I don't want to take any compensation. In order for you to have that mentality, you can't be poor. Can't be poor. You can't be poor. Why can't you be poor? Because most people that need money to live then want to pay the taxes, or they have to pay the taxes in order to maintain a lifestyle. That's why I tell my bag chasers, lower your lifestyle, increase your assets, lower the amount that you pay in debt, increase your assets so that you don't have to sell off your equity in yourself or your time in order to pay your bills. I'll break that down inside of the Patreon. We'll get into that on Stock Club, all right? Goes into it and they say, ink the deal to license,
Oh man.
Deal to license his name. With Hart becoming a shareholder in firm, Hart and ABG will co-manage the Kevin Hart brand, bringing it to new verticals and business areas, including consumer products, digital platform, and live experiences. So what this tells me is Kevin Hart alone is a big brand and he generates a lot of revenue. But what Kevin Hart is trying to do is figure out where he's not monetizing. In order for him to do that, he has to partner with somebody else that gets a percentage of his name, and then they're going to, because they see value in him, they're going to go and market him to everybody else. So it's a lot of money that he's missing out on because he don't know what he don't know, and he needs a vehicle. He needs a distribution platform to say, hey, listen, Kevin Hart is this, Kevin Hart is that, and as much money as he's making for us, he can make way more if we get him in front of this person and we can create this vertical for him and we can do this business deal for him, but we need a partnership in order for this to be lucrative for everybody, all right? This partnership is about acceleration, growth, and diversification. I've spent years building businesses and creating opportunities, and joining Authentic gives me the platform and global infrastructure to take my brand to the next level. Becoming a shareholder allows me to co-own some of the most recognizable IP of all time. So he becomes a shareholder of the company that also owns the IP of David Beckham and Shaquille O'Neal. While building my own brand legacy, I want the Hart name to live on for generations to come and be something that my grandkids and their grandkids will be able to be proud of. He goes on to say, Authentic has cut deals with other celebrities and public figures, including Shaquille O'Neal, David Beckham, and the estate of Muhammad Ali, as well as deals for brands in the world of fashion and sports, including Reebok, Prince, Champion, Eddie Bauer, and Sports Illustrated. The company leverages its brands to create new products and merchandise. See how well I read that? Listen. I had to stop because I know that if you're watching this on the clip, you don't know what happened.
He's signing deals.
I was getting on people that don't know how to read past a certain grade level. We need to learn how to communicate effectively. We need to learn how to communicate effectively. Do you see how I'm able to flow with that? The company leverages its brands to create new products and merchandise, as well as to license it for uses in digital media, hospitality, and other areas. There are Sports Illustrated resorts, for example. Authentic says that the brand it controls generate $32 billion in annual system-wide retail sales worldwide. See how I'm able to communicate that? When Kevin Hart go to... That's why most people don't think that it's cool to talk about finances, resources, and stream about money. Because the ones that say that they're getting it can't read the article to break it down for me from a C-student's perspective. Reading Rainbow. Maybe we do need to bring that back. Kevin is one of the most dynamic entertainers and entrepreneurs of our time, says Jamie Salter, founder, chairman, and CEO of Authentic. His creative vision, business instincts, and cultural impact are unmatched. Kevin sees what we see, the power of brand ownership, the opportunity to build a global, long-term business. His investment in Authentic also reflects our mutual confidence. Mutual meaning is beneficial to both of us. And shared vision for that growth.
Oh, that's a slug at Corey Holcomb.
President of Entertainment and International.
Because he can't read like that well.
Our strategy has always been to partner with visionary leaders who are building brands with long-term global relevance. Kevin represents the future of entertainment-driven IP. And together we will expand his brand across new categories and geographies, strengthening the entire Authentic network.
Now a local tax expert will do your taxes for $150 all in. No cap.
I hope y'all out there getting it. Getting it.
Shout out to Kevin Hart. So apparently he's basically licenses his name that allows for them to be able to generate more revenue that would make him more profitable to only thing that I'm wondering is, does the licensing of that name, is it forever, or do he get that back? It's the only thing I'm wondering. You know me, I'm just heavy on ownership. I love licensing. I love doing deals. I'm heavy on ownership. Congratulations to Kevin Hart.
So what if he don't get the name back?
I'm surprised.
He gonna die.
We went batshit crazy when we
But
were
the
talking
name
about
will-
Christie and Desmond Scott breaking up. But nobody wants to have a conversation about Kevin Hart inking a licensing deal for his name. Now let Kevin Hart get
that will go
caught
to
with
his
some
estate.
random raggedy hoe that's claiming that he did something and that he busted down inside of a hotel room, then everybody is going to be talking about it. But nobody is talking about this, and nobody is having a conversation, and I'm so surprised.
Turn the
I am so
motherfucking
surprised.
lights off.
This is how they keep us distracted. This is how you know. Because, listen, let me say this. It's so
Turn the
funny to me
motherfucking
how
lights
you'll
off.
get black platforms, even black platforms. They'll come on and they'll grill you and say, well, what do you do to talk about it? Everything I hear you talk about is gossip. Everything. And you know what they don't cover? They don't cover them both. They don't cover the good and the bad. Why aren't the even black platforms talking about it? You know what I do hear them saying about Kevin Hart? Oh, he ain't as funny as Dave Chappelle. Oh man, Bernie Mac had him.
Hold on, let me pause this real quick.
It's hate.
Let me make sure I get this. I'm going off.
That's what I see from people. Oh man, I didn't like it.
Turn the motherfucking lights off.
It's cool to have an opinion about whether or not you think the special was cool. But how come people ain't also talking about the $1 billion deal that he just did? How come people ain't congratulating Kevin Hart? Because we messy. We're messy. We're messy. The
I'm not
only
messy.
thing that we talk about is the degenerate.
And that's funny that I be having randos coming up to me trying to tell me that they know me on Facebook. They call me messy. No, you're messy because your algorithm is full of mess. When I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm over here learning, building, constantly elevating. You know, that's just how we do over here. Every now and then I might have to roar from the top of my hill or the top of my mountain, whatever you might want to call it. But I don't care with I don't know nothing about mess. I am the solution. I can be the problem, but I can also be the solution. See, y'all get the problem. When I pop up on y'all timelines and y'all see my face, it's because there was a problem. Yep, definitely was a problem. So I'm the problem, but I'm also the solution. I'm the question and the answer. I'm the here and the there. You understand? And now we're going to go into another level where we about to be everywhere. Dude, turn the motherfucking lights off.
Shit, and you don't see anybody searching for. I wrote it down as soon as somebody sent it to me. I said I got to research this. You said it's not entertaining. I think $1 billion is incredibly entertaining. I tend to think $1 billion is incredibly entertaining. Messi is so funny.
Let's see what we got next in the YouTube streets. So, Kevin Hart signs a deal for $1 billion. Black women archetypes explain how single black women view. Now I don't want to see that. 1869, how football began, to 1890, how American football became the game you love today. That's something I can educate myself on.
Princeton's rules, as drawn up in 1867. In 1869, the first American college football game took place between Princeton and Rutgers. The game was played under a modification of the rules of the London Football Associations. Princeton's rules, as drawn up in 1867, called for 25 players to a side. The ball was to be kicked or butted with the head. Carrying the ball was forbidden. When the ball was caught in the air or on the first bounce,
That sounds like soccer.
the catcher was entitled to a free kick.
Physical soccer.
6
Niggas just want to
goals were
touch on
necessary to win
each
the
other.
game. The goalposts were 25 feet apart. According to a short clipping from the New York Times on November 9th, 1869, the game lasted for 1 hour and Rutgers won 6-4. Insert your joke here about everything going downhill from Rutgers from there. Over the next 20
That was
years,
like war.
American football would evolve from something akin to mob soccer, I mean, think about 25 players to the side, to the American football we love today.
It's a
This video
game.
will cover the years from 1869.
It started from rich white folks. Yeah, it's like rugby. Except now, well, rugby, they pick the ball up and run. But mob
To
soccer.
around 1890. It is during these years American football established itself as a distinct sport invented in the United States. Before I get to American football, first a brief bit about the origin of rugby. Rugby was
I just said
invented
it, yep.
in 1823. A young man named William Webb Ellis catches a ball, which was allowed, and ran with it, which wasn't allowed. He broke all the rules at the time, and he was playing at the rugby school in Warwickshire, England. It sounds like a goofy origin story. I mean, this one guy catches a ball and runs with it, and everybody's okay with it. I'm sure there were other guys before that did the same thing, but we start with this one, William Webb Ellis, because you have to start somewhere. It's a goofy origin story. That's the one for rugby. It's just like our first intercollegiate football game that resembled like nothing like football as we know today. But you have to start somewhere. Let's move forward to 1870. A year after the first collegiate game of football, Columbia joined Princeton and Rutgers and began to play something close to soccer. The Cornell Football Association was organized. There were a number of colleges playing soccer-ish ball by then. And Yale began playing football as well, kind of. Allison Danzig, in the book, The History of American Football, published in 1956, talks about how there was a student at Yale named David Schley Schaff. He had been at the rugby school in England and had played football there, or rugby. Schaff became a leader at Yale, and when they called a meeting of the students on October 31st, 1872, they organized the Yale Football Association and elected Schaff the team president and captain. So what you kind of see is a split between the schools. Yale wants to start playing something close to rugby. The other schools want to continue something that's much more related to soccer. One of those influential soccer schools was Harvard. And in 1874, McGill University out of Montreal, Canada, plays Harvard. They agree to play 2 games, one under Harvard's rules and one under McGill's. McGill was playing rugby. When the games were over, everybody just decided rugby was much more fun, and Harvard went over to play rugby after that. And this is the game that marks a turning point for American football. It is the game that pushes America towards rugby in place of soccer or European football. If you remember the latest Super Bowl, there was an ad with Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, and he said, "We should thank Canada for football." This is because of that game in 1874 between McGill and Harvard. So in 1875, there's another game of great importance that's played between Harvard and Yale.
Hockey.
And these are the two most
lacrosse.
influential universities in the United States.
It got to be lacrosse or hockey.
Harvard is playing rugby, while Yale is still playing something close to soccer. Harvard beats the tar out of Yale, mostly because Yale didn't know what was going on. And the end result is that Yale was won over to rugby.
To AMH, welcome to a shopping experience where you can rent a home on your own terms.
How that
You
motherfucker's
can
just
let yourself in to tour homes on your own
cold
schedule with
fly right there.
The games were played in 1875, and the next year, 1876, Yale commits to rugby. It's key because there was a young man named Walter Camp at Yale at that time, and he was playing for Yale in 1876. And Walter Camp would later become known as the father of American football. He had an enormous influence over football for the next 4 decades. So by the late 1870s, you've got Yale, Harvard, Princeton, and Columbia are all playing rugby. They are spreading their love for rugby to the other schools around them. But those 4 are the primary powerhouses of the time. They are the influencers, as we would say now. Also in 1876, there is a meeting with representatives from the schools, and they want to set the rules between them. Previous to this, the rules were typically set by the home team or agreed upon before a game. So they were kind of loose rules, not hard and fast rules. They largely adopt the rugby union code as used in England, but Yale and Walter Camp want 11 players on a side rather than the 15 current at the time. There is also a lot of contention over scoring, and this is confusing. A touchdown in rugby is when you actually touch what we call the end zone. At the time, that resulted in no points. What it did was give you the opportunity to try a kick, and if you made that kick, that was worth points or a score. And it sounds completely weird to us, but it is confusing when you're looking at this stuff, how in the hell it all works together. So Princeton, Harvard, and Columbia formed the first intercollegiate football association in real football. Yale held out for a couple of years because they still wanted to play with 11 men, and they played with those rules with the other schools around them. In 1878, Yale again tries to get the rules changed so that there are 11 players on a side, and they fail. They would fail until 1880. In 1880, they finally succeed because they figure out that they need an extra guy at the meetings for voting purposes, so when it comes time to vote, they win. So there you get 11 players versus 15 on a side. And it's important because you have 22 guys running around on a field instead of 30. And imagine a football with 30 guys running around a field. How would anybody score? I guess it just seems more mob-like. Also in 1880 comes the rule. It is the rule, the one rule that separates American football from rugby. It is the concept of possession. In rugby, play typically begins with a scrum where there are players in a mass and they push back and forth until one of them kick the ball out to their team. Who ends up with the ball largely depends upon chance or who's better at doing the scrumming than the other team. But it's really chance. Nobody knows who's going to get the ball until it comes out of the scrum. So Walter Camp comes up with this rule where a scrimmage takes place when the holder of the ball puts it on the ground before him and puts it in play by kicking the ball or snapping it back with his foot. The man who first receives the ball from the snapback shall be called the quarterback and shall not rush forward with the ball under penalty of foul. So you kind of see the first establishment of our football. In rugby, when a guy gets tackled, he has to give up the ball immediately, and either side can get the ball after that, but they don't stop play and set up like a line of scrimmage like we do in American football. And you'll notice that, from what I just stated about Walter Camp's rule, instead of that being called a center, it's a snapback. And notice that the ball goes to the quarterback, and the quarterback really can't do anything. He can't rush. He normally would just pass the ball off to a halfback. But it's the beginning of American football as we know it, with the idea of possession. So the new rule is accepted unanimously, and that starts American football. And this all sounds well and good, but there are games that are called block games. And one of those, the most famous, is the 1881 championship between Yale and Princeton. The Intercollegiate Association awarded the championship to the team who had won it before in case of a tie. So basically a tie was equivalent to a victory. So Princeton comes into this 81 game, and they're undefeated, and they felt that if they didn't lose the game, they would remain undefeated, and therefore they'd be able to call themselves champions. So as a result, Princeton spent the entire first half of the game not attempting to score. They literally would start with the ball, and they would run scrimmages, which are basically what we call plays, and they would move it backwards in times, and they would actually move it backward into what we call the end zone now. And they'd argued that there was no rule that they had to give it over to the other team, despite what we would call a safety, and therefore they kept the ball and they started over again at the 25. Princeton basically holds the ball the entire first game, therefore blocking Yale from getting the ball. And Yale, seeing this, did the same
Time
thing
of possession.
in the second half. They held the ball and they made no attempt to score, and the game ended in a scoreless tie. And it was the most famous block game, and it really made everybody really angry. There were approximately 10 to 15,000 people who came to watch this game.
Bachelor's degree doesn't have to put your life on hold. Not only does WGU have a generous transfer policy, but you get to complete coursework whenever works best for you. Study and take tests on your lunch break, after the kids go to bed, or with your morning coffee. Learn more and get started at wgu.edu.
And from the Buffalo Commercial, which was a newspaper at the time, on November 26, 1881, we see this. Hence it came that the immense crowd of spectators who surrounded the field, not far from 10,000, found themselves standing shivering in the November gale, only to see a wrestling match between two college 11s. Well, these people think they're going to come out and watch a football game, and really what they do is they watch this boring, as the guy indicates, a wrestling match. And there are a number of newspaper accounts referring to games like this, and they are called block games, and they really made people angry because nobody did anything. They just didn't, they held on to the ball and they didn't really try to score, and they were boring. And the last thing you want your sport is to be boring, right? From the same article in the Buffalo Commercial, it comes, evidently a new code of rules is required to remediate this monotonous work, a merry, rushing, mauling, and scrimmages in the place of lively kicking and legitimate football played. I'm going to read you another piece, a little bit, a passage from the commercial, the Buffalo Commercial article from 1881. And it's not about the rules or really the game, but it is about fan behavior, and I thought it was interesting to note. So here it goes. 11 young gents came out from under the grandstand with white pants and jackets and blue stockings and caps. Soon after, another 11 zebra-striped young gentlemen came out with an egg-shaped object, which they fondled a few moments, while scientific freshmen and sophomores ran across the field and gave advice to the players. This is one of the features of the game. If the advices of the other students were all followed, the ball would be simultaneously held, passed, kicked, down, touched, and in every case passed over the other's goal in about 3 minutes from the kick-off.
Let somebody
One of
outside.
the drawbacks to this desirable result is that the ball can only be in one place at a time. So basically what he's saying, this is an article from 1881, and it's about how the crowd, the scientific freshmen and sophomores, know what the players are supposed to be doing on the field, so they're screaming instructions, much like we do now. And people will comment that, well, have you coached the game? Have you ever played the game? And other people will scream, you should have run a screen pass, or you should have gone for two. And note that even in 1881, before the full rules are established to make American football, that this is a feature of the game. I love that line, this is a feature of the game, because it adequately describes what our fan behavior is and how we approach the game as fans. And it's neat to see this in 1881 because I think it's hilarious that nothing ever changes, really. In the same article, the author complains that a new code of rules is required to stop the monotony of the block game. And really a new code of rules is what they got. So the Intercollegiate Association adopted the down and yards to gain rule at the convention
100
in
years.
1882. And the rule states, if in 3 consecutive fairs and downs a team shall not have advanced the ball 5 yards nor lost 10 yards, they shall surrender the ball to their opponents in the spot of the last down. A fair was putting the ball in play from out of bounds. Kind of weird, but here we see the idea of the system of downs and change of possession. And it eliminated the block games so that people wouldn't get angry because they were watching a wrestling match. But the rule not only brought about the modern game that we know, where there is a possession, different than rugby, and a change of possession, and the concept of downs, but it also resulted in the field being marked with yard markers, which were placed every 5 yards, both horizontally and vertically, so that the field looked like a gridiron. Note that the markings were made, they made these markings with lime. I've had lime in my eye before because of an accident. And it is incredibly painful. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be tackled on one of the yard markers and have the line come up and get in your eyes, because over prolonged exposure that could cause blindness and severe issues. But they played with a different level of abandon than we do now. So the concept of possession, the line of scrimmage, the system of downs all result in strategy. In rugby, well, I'm sure there's a strategy in rugby. I don't know rugby that well. But, with the ball coming out kind of by chance, you really don't get the chance to set up a play, and therefore you don't have the same level of strategy that you do in football, in American football. The strategies involved how many men you put on the line of scrimmage and how many men were kept in the backfield. So keep in mind that the forward pass is still illegal, but you could come up with all sorts of different formation. And the establishment of these rules that I've outlined so far, basically they create the running game, and what we now know as the run game. Walter Camp is credited in 1882 with devising the use of signals to call plays. 1883 introduced the numerical scoring system. Points were awarded for goals, which is basically a kick, touchdowns, and safeties. Prior to this, a goal, a kick, was worth more than a touchdown. A goal from the field was better than a touchdown before touchdowns took precedence over a goal from the field. Again, from Alison's Danzig's book, The History of College Football. In the early 80s, the old rugby system scoring was a source of a number of disputes and quarrels. The system was not a numerical one, but balanced one play against the other. Thus, a goal from the field was superior to the touchdown, before touchdowns took precedence over a goal from the field. If the question of victory involved safeties, then the side making 4 safeties less than its opponent won the game.
Stupid.
Is that not just horribly confusing? It is horribly confusing, but that's how they did it at the time. They didn't really have points for each of these things. The problem was that there was a lot of arguing about who won the games because there was no set standard for how much each one of these, a safety, a kick, a touchdown, or a goal, was worth. In 1883, the convention passed a rule regarding numerical scoring. A safety was worth 1 point, a touchdown 2 points, a goal from a try or a touchdown 4 points, and a goal from the field 5 points. And then in 1884, they changed that again, and a touchdown was counted for 4 points, the goal after the touchdown 2 points, and a safety was 2 points. There are 2 more rules I'm going to cover as I conclude this video. In 1888, the rules changed to allow tackling below the waist and as far down as the knees. Tackling below the waist was forbidden in rugby, and up to this point, it was forbidden in our new American football. So in 1880, 8, the tackling the below the waist rule is changed. This changes the strategy on the field to provide better protection for the ball carrier. Previous to this change, the game was kind of wide open. Formations had lines, people on the line of scrimmage stretched across the field with backs as far out to the edges. Because rugby is this thing where you get the ball out of the scrum, your objective is to pass it out to the side of the field where the fleet-footed guys who are the wings and they can run much faster than everybody else. And your idea is to get the ball out quickly and they can run down the field and score, whether it's a try or a touchdown or a kick or I don't know. With the tackling below the waist, this changes strategy because now it's much easier to tackle a guy if you can dive at him and stuff like that. It's also more dangerous. So the formations in American football changed, so they become much tighter. It was much harder for the backs to get to the outside and gain yardage because they're more easily tackled. So the linemen are brought in and they're closer together, and then the backs are behind them. Also in 1888 is another new rule that allows for blocking in front of a ball carrier. It's originally called interference. It was another huge change in the game. So previously these rules, the game was much more wide open. And with these two rules, the next phase of football will evolve into mass momentum plays, which involve pushing and pulling players and forming a mass behind, in front of a ball carrier with which they hope to gain yardage. So you've had taken a wide open game and you've compressed it, and in the next phase, it's going to become very deadly. And I hope to do more videos coming as we move into the next phase of American football. I hope you enjoyed this video about the foundation of American football and how it began. Please subscribe to our channel. And please give me feedback about anything you'd like to see and any feedback about the video. I am trying to learn more about how to do decent videos, do video editing, and improve my skills with everything else. And how to tell better stories here on YouTube. I kind of like doing the college football history thing, and I think I'll stick with that for a while. I'm going to do a little bit of a bonus piece. It's kind of long. I'm going to read to you and show you a portion of a book called Scientific and Practical Treatise on American Football for Schools and Colleges by Amos Alonzo Stagg and Henry L. Williams. It was published in 1893. The version I'm reading from is revised 1894. And it kind of gives part of it gives a description. It's all about the rules of the game, but part of it gives a description of exactly what football would look at the time. So this is kind of long. This is why I included it at the end. If you stick around for it, thank you. And again, I'd like feedback.
High quality tools you need at the prices you deserve. Shop and save at your new Harbor Freight.
Reaching peak health? It's not as hard as what you think. Get started at noom.com.
In the open.
Unwind with Tasha K. Don't really care. Who is she talking about?
Like her actual neglect, if we could just more so pinpoint for awareness for children that are going through certain disabilities and special needs, and maybe spotlight Krishan Jr. as one of, not the spokesperson, but kind of, spokesperson for it. Any angle we could do to make this more so of a national thing instead of viral online, because nothing has been happening. So this is the reason why I called.
Oh, okay. So he's being bullied online?
Story of NBA Jam.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of bullying going on, but more so people being concerned about him. So the 10,000 reports that have been made to CPS.
What happened in 1991? Everything.
Alan, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my new series coming this fall. First, I'm gonna make some announcements on TV.
By 1991, the novelty of the new decade had mostly worn off. People had settled into the 1990s and were looking to see what was on TV. And what a year it would be. Jerry Springer and Montel Williams debuted their talk shows on the same day. Michael Jackson premiered his latest music video live on 4 networks.
Jerry Springer, white man, from the political side, started his show, and Montel Williams, black man, supposed to be from the culture, started his show. And they both was real similar into things, but then Jerry Springer went insane.
And Red Fox would finally face the big one while filming an episode of his sitcom, The Royal Family. And don't even get us started on Hammerman.
Hammerman! Hammer! Oh, yeah!
We're going to take you through all of the television shows, news, and events of 1991. Because this is Timeline. Let's
Dangerous. Darkwing Duck.
Get ready to catch Laura Palmer's killer with the help of Darkwing Duck, because this one is all about 1991.
Tyson Crusaders. I remember having that video game.
Started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below about your favorite
Rock.
TV memories from 1991. Now, are you ready to find out what everyone was watching on TV while the Soviet Union was collapsing?
I wasn't just hacking around. I knew I could play the guitar like that.
ABC's TGIF was a block of interconnected sitcoms that included shows like Full House, Family Matters, and Perfect Strangers.
Yup.
While Family Matters was a spin-off of Perfect Strangers, the TGIF universe really began on January 25th when Family Matters' Steve Urkel showed up on Full House to help Stephanie cope with her new glasses.
And always remember, hold your head up high. Otherwise, those suckers will slide right off your nose.
After that, Urkel popped up in at least 4 other ABC sitcoms, and the TGIF universe was off and running.
Yep.
Welcome to
I
a
remember.
destination full of flavor. Enjoy freshly ground bean.
February 7th, the hit series L.A. Law aired its famous Lesbian Kiss episode, Keys of
I
Crime.
don't know nothing about that.
Same-sex smooch, which was the first of its kind on network television, was considered controversial at the time, and a handful of advertisers pulled.
I remember the show, but I didn't watch that shit.
Big deal.
I didn't watch L.A. Law.
Hard for one of the actresses. It was hard all the
White
way
women.
around.
But that was nothing new for the show, which was famous for breaking taboos.
I like men.
So do I.
You're,
Flexible.
2 days later, SNL went live from New York with a brand new cast member, Adam Sandler. Sandler had joined the series as a writer in 1990 and made his first on-camera appearance on December 8th of that year. But the February 9th, 1991 episode was his first as an official member of the cast. On March 4th, Los Angeles station KTLA first broadcast a brief, grainy home video of a group of LAPD officers viciously beating an African-American man named Rodney King.
Dramatic videotape obtained by Channel 5 News shows what appears to be a group of LAPD officers beating a suspect.
This disturbing video sparked outrage across the country, and the subsequent acquittal of the officers involved would lead directly to the LA riots in 1992.
What are you doing today?
Watching all the stupid fools burn up everything.
LA Law made headlines again on March 21st, when the show gave the villainous Rosalind Shays the shaft. Literally.
Objection!
Shays, played by Diana Muldaur, was the show's primary antagonist, and was so despised by viewers that producers finally decided to off the character by having her fall down an elevator shaft mid-conversation. Rosalind's shocking and undeniably silly demise became one of the series' most infamous moments.
Verschwundenweise.
A few days later, Clarissa Explains It All debuted on Nickelodeon. The
I didn't
series
watch
starred
Nickelodeon.
Melissa Joan Hart as Clarissa Darling, a teenager with a habit of breaking the fourth wall to explain her thoughts to the audience, a la Ferris Bueller.
Just one question. Do I know Mom well enough to know how to make her think that she knows me?
Was equally popular with girls and boys, upending some beliefs that boys wouldn't watch shows with a female lead.
Clarissa Explains It All, every Sunday at 6:30, 5:30 Central.
On Nickelodeon.
In 1989,
Ooh, man, I just got a
launched
chill over
the
my
Comedy
body.
Channel, the first
My
cable
soul.
channel devoted exclusively to comedy programming.
The Comedy Channel. You laugh
I remember being in
Comedy is
hotel
our name.
rooms.
New channel. Your last name, right? Yeah.
A year later, Viacom launched Ha, a competitor that showed mostly sitcoms and sketch comedy shows. But it turns out the world didn't really need both. So on April 1st, 1991, the two merged into a single channel called CTV, the Comedy Network, which they would rebrand just 2 months later as Comedy Central. In 1989, journalist Katie Couric joined the cast of The Today Show as a political correspondent. And when co-anchor Deborah Norville went on maternity leave in February 1991, Couric stepped in as her temporary replacement. Only Norville, who wasn't terribly popular with audiences, never returned to her post after giving birth. And so, on April 5th, Couric became permanent co-anchor.
From NBC News, this is Today with Bryant Gumbel, Catherine Couric.
A position she'd keep until 2006.
How did it sound?
Sounded good, but I still can't decide whether I'm Catherine or Katie.
Action star and alleged martial artist Steven Seagal was invited to host Saturday Night Live on April 20th in what would become one of the show's most infamous episodes.
There's a lot more to Steven Seagal than the martial arts.
Seagal's wooden acting.
Family was one of the best movies ever made, and I kick any you could say that didn't make that kind of money.
Refusal to poke fun at himself.
It's a tattoo. Yeah.
And hostility towards the cast resulted in 2 hours of uniquely terrible sketches and Seagal's lifetime ban from the show. The following Friday, ABC broadcast the premiere of the show
Dinosaurs, not the
Produced
mama.
by Henson Studios. The show was a sitcom about a family of anthropomorphic dinosaurs. The animatronics used to create the characters made it the most expensive sitcom of its day.
Hey, brand new, just out. Gotta love me. Come on.
On May 3rd, Dallas is...
Dallas!
Dallas, the final episode. Trust us, it ends with a bang.
May 3rd brought the final episode of the iconic nighttime soap opera Dallas. The series, which was famous for Larry Hagnan's portrayal of J.R. Ewing, had debuted way back in 1978 and titillated audiences with gimmicky mysteries like Who Shot J.R.? And an entire season that was revealed to be a dream. It would be survived by its spin-off Knots Landing and followed up with a handful of Dallas TV movies and a short-lived reboot in 2012. 3
I'm
weeks
about to
later,
watch Knots
Johnny
Landing.
Carson, the iconic host of the
I
Tonight
didn't know
Show
that.
on NBC, announced that he would be retiring.
It's coming to an end, next year. I've always wanted to be a shepherd.
Carson had been sitting behind the desk since 1962, when he was first introduced on camera by Groucho Marx. His replacement, frequent guest host Jay Leno, would take over on May 22nd, 1992.
Yeah, I didn't know Knox Landing had something to do with Dallas.
June 2nd,
Might have to do some more
MTV
research on
threw its
that.
hat into the animation ring with the debut of Liquid Television, a showcase for offbeat animated shorts that would serve as a launching pad for future series like Beavis and Butthead and Aeon Flux. On June 10th, David Lynch's now legendary series Twin Peaks came to a close with its 29th episode. The highly influential show declined in the ratings after network executives demanded a solution to the murder mystery that drove the plot. The second season finale, which was never intended to be a series finale, would prove to be its final episode. The cancellation of Twin Peaks, however, wouldn't be the last time audiences got to visit that particular town. In 1992, Lynch directed the prequel film Twin Peaks: Fire Walk With Me. In 2017, the show returned to television with a third season called Twin Peaks: The Return, finishing the story to both critical and commercial acclaim. On July 1st, Court TV started broadcasting trials to a surprising amount of success. The channel, which focused on
Court
live
TV.
coverage of prominent criminal cases, legal talk shows, and other crime-themed programs, was surprisingly popular for a while, before rebranding to True TV in 2008.
This Sunday, why face the nation when you can face the animation? Nickelodeon's new
Rugrats.
cartoons are stimulating and tasty.
And on August 11th, Nickelodeon aired the first block of Nicktoons. The 90-minute block marked the debuts of what would become 3 of the channel's most iconic animated series.
Kids are attempting to build time machines so they can race through the week and go straight to Sunday, where they'll find Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy.
The incredible success of those initial 3 would encourage the company to continue the block, which would eventually serve as a launchpad for future hits like SpongeBob SquarePants. Then, on September 17th, ABC aired the series premiere of Home Improvement. Based on the stand-up comedy of Tim Allen, the show followed Tim the Toolman Taylor, Home Improvement TV show host,
We want a job done right, and we want it done quick. What do we need?
who lives in suburban Detroit with his wife and 3 sons. A smash series, which made light of Tim's obsession with tools, would go on to run 8 seasons, finishing up with one of the most watched finales of all time. 2 days later, on September 19th, The Simpsons aired the episode Stark Raving Dad, in which Homer befriends a man who believes he's Michael Jackson.
This is what Michael Jackson looks like. You look like a big fat mental patient.
However, a few highly observant viewers noticed the character's voice was suspiciously similar to the real King of Pop.
The training wheels come off your bike. You start to notice boys you like.
You're just putting that in because it's a commercial.
As it turns out, it was Jackson, working under the pseudonym John J. Smith, for legal reasons. Back in the day, it wasn't unusual for a sitcom that was running out of steam to add a character's voice was suspiciously similar to the real King of Pop.
The training wheels come off your bike. You start to notice boys you like.
You're just putting that in because it's a commercial.
As it turns out, it was Jackson, working under the pseudonym John J. Smith, for legal reasons. Back in the day, it wasn't unusual for a sitcom that was running out of steam to add a new character who was usually a cute little kid.
This was the worst day of my life.
And that's what the Alan Thicke sitcom Growing Pains did on September 25th, when the Seaver family took in Luke, an orphaned teen played by Leonardo DiCaprio.
Let's invite you over to a dream house for tea.
Well, I never turned down an invitation from a beautiful woman.
Despite being played by the future superstar, Luke wouldn't help ratings much, and the season would prove to be the show's last. If you happen to be watching MTV's Alternative Music Showcase 120 Minutes on September 29th, then you saw rock and roll history being made.
These songs are Nirvana. And you're up very late on a Sunday night.
That was the day the show debuted the now iconic music video for Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. The video, which depicts the band performing the song at a high school pep rally, turned the group into superstars, and the album Nevermind into one of the best-selling albums of all time.
With a naked baby on the cover.
Carmen Sandiego is a tricky one to track down, but on September 30th, you could find Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego debuting on PBS. The children's quiz show, based on the computer game series, was hosted by Greg Lee and featured special appearances by actress Lynn Thigpen playing the Chief, as well as the musical group Rockapella.
Where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego. On October 13th, Season 3 of In Living Color debuted with a few new faces, including future Oscar winner
Jamie Foxx
and future icon Jennifer Lopez, who became one of the show's Fly Girl dancers. Lopez would stick around for 2 seasons, and Fox would stay on until the series ended in Season 5.
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Finally, Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry departed for the final frontier on October 24th, shortly after the 5th season premiere of Star Trek The Next Generation. Star Trek remains an iconic science fiction franchise, with several films and spin-offs that are still airing to this day. Fittingly, some of Roddenberry's ashes were sent into space on the shuttle Columbia. So what do you think? What was the best TV moment of 1991? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other timeline videos.
I like that.
The great Don Huffines, by the way. Don's running for Doge, Texas. He's doing a great job. Fully endorsed him.
Ooh, the timeline, the 90s, everything
Now at
that.
Whataburger, you can get the
Ooh,
new
this shit is.
wrap for $3. 5 premium wadded chicken bites for $4.
That shit is 4 hours long. We gonna start it. Let's dig.
This is the 90s, man.
Did I miss the 90s?
Hammer time. This is the 90s, the 1990s in point of fact.
Does your girlfriend have a girlfriend? It's the 90s.
The 1990s. This decade would be all that and a bag of chips.
We're not talking brain cells here, we're talking taste buds.
Where the planet would see the rise of the World Wide Web.
Plane tickets are ordered. Now, let's look up dinosaurs.
Civil unrest in the States, and a hairstyle called the Rachel dominate the landscape. Today, we're going to give you the 411 about the news, culture, sports, and entertainment, and all that was weird in the 90s.
Don't touch that clown.
This is Timeline.
The cussing pastor.
Hang on to your plaid, because we're starting at the beginning with the year 1990. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below what your favorite 90s expression was. Okay, baby, let's go back.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm dying for a Pepsi.
Coming out of the 80s, the world was changing. Communism was crumbling. The Cold War was thawing, and materialism had taken root in our culture. Moving into the 90s, how would this decade be defined? In the year ahead, we would see one of the biggest upsets in sports history, a whale of a good time, and a stage being set for war.
5 months ago, Saddam Hussein started this cruel war against Kuwait. Tonight, the battle has been joined.
This is 1990.
Aren't you going to say hello?
The year started off great for David N. Dinkins, who became the first black mayor of New York City, who was sworn in on January 1st. Dinkins' tenure, however, was marred with unparalleled levels of crime and a massive budget deficit. Most commonly, he's remembered for failing to respond to the race riot in August of 1991, now dubbed the Crown Heights crisis. At the time, tensions were high between blacks and Jews in Brooklyn. A brutal attack on Orthodox Jews sparked a full-blown riot. 2 days later, after holding up in the Vatican Embassy in Panama City for 10 days, dictator Manuel Noriega surrendered to the United States. American forces surrounded the location, blasted music, and flew helicopters overhead. Eventually, the U.S. and the Vatican reached an agreement, and Noriega surrendered. Coming back to the States, we go to Washington, D.C., where Mayor Marion Barry was arrested during an FBI sting operation and caught smoking the crack on January 18th. In a surprising twist, after serving his 6-month sentence, Barry was re-elected mayor, serving from 1995 to 99.
Damn mayor on crack.
In late January, we head to the New Orleans Superdome, where during Super Bowl 24, the San Francisco 49ers demolished Mule-Mouth John Elway and the Denver Broncos 55-10. Quarterback Joe Montana won his 3rd Super Bowl MVP. 3 days later, the Soviet Union saw its first McDonald's restaurant open in Moscow. Those golden arches attracted long lines of hungry Russians, who waited as long as 6 hours for 2 all-beef patties,
special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun,
plus fries and a Coke.
I think the reaction from the Soviets is going to be exceptional. I think they're going to just say, thank you, thanks McDonald's, thanks for coming here.
One journalist noted the level of Russian enthusiasm was the expression of America's rationalism and pragmatism toward food. That's one way of looking at it.
Moscow 1990, that's crazy.
With Specs Game Day Ready Sale.
Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson, The Ring 6, January 31st. Watch only on DAZN.
On February 11th, the leader of the movement to end South African apartheid, Nelson Mandela, was released from prison after spending 27 years incarcerated.
I tell you, feeling the thrill of just realizing that he's going to be out.
I feel free today. That's going to change the country a lot.
Mandela had been sent to prison on trumped-up charges of treason and sabotage. Flash forward 4 years, where on May 10th, Mandela would be elected as president of South Africa and serve until 1999.
The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come.
Back to 1990, and we go to the Tokyo Dome in Japan, where on the same day as Mandela's release, the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson, was defeated. Iron Mike was knocked down and out by the 42-1 underdog, Buster Douglas, in the 10th round of the bout. The next day, on February 12th, rapper, dancer, and iconic Genie Pants wearer MC Hammer released his album, Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em. The album stayed on the Billboard 200 for 21 weeks straight and propelled MC into superstardom thanks to his juggernaut single, You Can't Touch This. Hammer became so popular that a year and a half later, he got his very own cartoon, Hammerman.
Hammerman.
On September 7th, 1991. Your very own cartoon. Now that's making it.
It's hammer time.
Back to 1990, we go to the courts, where on February 27th, the case of Washington versus Harper saw an inmate in Washington state sue the prison system for involuntary medication, specifically around the inmate's antipsychotic medication. The court found that Harper was a danger to either himself or his fellow inmates, and the prison was well within its rights to administer antipsychotic medicine against the will of the individual involved.
Timeline, we'll be right back.
Burger King by storm. This one's one of your favorite heroes on Hasbro every time you buy a Kids Club meal. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle badges.
I remember those. Ronald White, what's up with it?
Sir, we have been sabotaged. I'm telling you, he wants to defect. Let's shake the man loose.
The Hunt for Red October. I had that video game.
Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, The Hunt for Red October.
This is no April Fool's joke, but after a 9-year stagnation, the federal minimum wage was increased on April 1st, going from $3.35 to a whopping $3.80.
From what Mindy is holding, we found what we were looking for, being fans of pigs.
Hello. I was wondering if I might join you for a cup of strong black coffee.
They got everything out there that'll kill you.
On April 10th, animal rights activists had a win when they successfully convinced canned tuna brands not to buy fish caught from companies that use nets which harm dolphins. The turning point was when Heinz, who was the globe's foremost tuna supplier, decided to stop buying any tuna using coarse fishing net methods.
Just about everything you see in here is a potential accident. Let me show you something. Let's just say you're changing the water in this here tank. And you accidentally fill it with gasoline, like so. The janitor comes in, there's a power outage, he lights himself a match, and he's cooking fish sticks.
In late April, the Hubble telescope was launched into space with the Space Shuttle Discovery. After its launch, it was discovered that the telescope's primary mirror had an aberration that affected its ability to produce clear and accurate images, making the poor Hubble a late-night talk show punchline.
Have you heard about the problems with the Hubble Space Telescope? They called the NASA official repairman to fix it. And he said he'll be up there sometime in the 21st century between noon and 5.
Since being fixed, the Hubble has helped revolutionize astronomy, giving in-depth looks at distant stars, planets, and galaxies, and giving scientists a better understanding of black holes. Some sad news as we head into mid-May. The man behind the Muppets, Jim Henson, died at the age of 53.
He's taught me so much. Just by being the person who he is.
I'm hungry.
Henson single-handedly ushered in a new golden age of puppets, creating many of his iconic characters on Sam and Friends in 1955, which would then later be reborn as The Muppet Show, almost 20 years later. Besides being the hand behind Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, Henson also helped create puppets for The Dark Crystal, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Farscape, and Labyrinth. On the same day, beloved Rat Pack member Sammy Davis Jr. passed away. The actor, singer, and comedian died while heavily in debt to the IRS. His estate was divided up and had various legal battles surrounding it, even after the death of his wife, who passed in 2009. The little-known fact about Sammy was that towards the back half of his life, he converted from Judaism to Satanism. The Mr. Bojangles crooner hosted many interesting parties, satanic rituals, and pagan sacrifices.
Welcome to a delicious destination full of flavor, where aromatic, freshly ground coffee is bean to cup, and sizzling, fluffy, melty biscuits and croissants are stacked to perfection. Saucy, bubbly, cheesy, made-in-store pizza, succulent sausage and pepperoni, it's perfect. It's stop on your way, stop in your tracks, taste bud tingling goodness all in one place. Racetrack, whatever gets you going.
Shields All Sports Store is your one-stop shop for everything outdoors. With hunting and fishing experts eager to guide you to the best brands for your next adventure. Your one-stop for running gear to get working out, or fashions for going out. And your one-stop for footwear in your size, your style, all yours to take home today. Shields is like no place you've ever shopped before. Shields, it's worth the trip every time. Come see us.
Sticking with the music, Madonna's Vogue topped the charts by reaching #1 on the US Hot 100 on May 19th and stayed there for 3 consecutive weeks. The music video for Vogue was directed by a then-budding David Fincher, who we may hear from later on in the decade.
What's in 1995? What's in 1995?
In late May, Colombian elections were marred by violent protests and riots after Cesar Gaviria won the presidency. Luis Carlos Galán, the Colombian presidential candidate, had been shot and killed while campaigning south of Bogotá. He was so far ahead in the polls for the presidential elections that he was virtually assured of victory. His campaign manager, Cesar Gaviria, ran in his place after the attack and was elected president. Immediately after Galán's assassination, the president at the time, Virgilio Barco, retaliated by reinstating extraditions.
Have you brought any fruits or vegetables onto the planet?
2 weeks. Excuse me?
Catch.
Was that total recall?
A notable first, the Thanatron, the machine Jack Kevorkian used for assisted suicides, was used for the first time on June 4th. Janet Adkins of Portland, Oregon, became the first person to use the Thanatron.
A decision that had been made some time ago. The boys were all familiar with it, and we all knew what she wanted to do.
Kevorkian and the Thanatron would eventually be enlisted by 129 other people to end their own lives. 6 days later, federal district judge Jose Gonzalez ruled that Two Live Crew's album, As Nasty as They Wanna Be, was obscene, and the album was ruled illegal to perform in multiple Florida counties. With hits like Me So Horny and Dirty Nursery Rhymes, the group quickly gained nationwide recognition for their profanity and explicit lyrics. Crew's Fresh Kid Ice and Amazing V were arrested by the police during a performance at, of all places, a local Florida strip club after the ruling. The case was taken to trial, where the crew would eventually be acquitted. Two Live Crew walked, so Megan Thee Stallion could run. Sticking with the justice system, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld by a 6-3 vote police DUI checkpoints on June 14th. In the decision, written by Chief Justice William Rehnquist, the court rejected assertions that DUI checkpoints violated the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable search and seizure.
What's a meal I hate to miss? Skittles and bits and bits and bits. Variety I must insist. Skittles and bits and bits and bits. Crunchy, chewy, golden. Chow down. Skittles and bits and bits and bits.
We now go to the Middle East, where on June 21st, a 7.7 magnitude earthquake devastated Iran. An estimated 50,000 Iranians perished, and over 400,000 people were left homeless from the quake, which spanned from 7.3 to 7.7 on the Richter scale. Heading into July, we go to Italy, buongiorno, where West Germany, yes, West Germany was still around at the time, won the FIFA World Cup, defeating Argentina 1-0. This was the third World Cup title for West Germany.
You ain't got a body no more, son. It's all up here now. You want to move something, you got to move it with your mind. I did it. Way to go.
The month of August would start off a touch fresher, with the city of San Luis Obispo, California, adopting the first legislation to ban smoking in bars. Tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds fumigated local residents with pamphlets urging them to call their council members, but to no avail. By July of 2018, nearly every state adopted similar laws, with only 12 states: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming, who still live in flavor country. 6 days later, after invading Kuwait, the Iraqi government proclaimed that they had annexed the country. In a statement issued from Saddam Hussein's ruling council, they insisted their lack of fear from American military forces, despite the annexation, proclaiming, "All the fleets and squadrons of aircraft will not shake a single palm frond in Iraq." We'll see how well that statement holds going into 1991.
Clear.
Oh my god.
We fucking got him.
Come on, Nelson. Pick up the beat. Easy, easy, easy.
Nelson, pick up the beat. Pick up the beat. Pick up the beat.
What's up, man? Oh, what happened to your Whitney Houston cutout? He fell apart in the shower.
On September 14th, Seattle Mariners Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. made history by becoming the first father-son duo to hit back-to-back home runs against the California Angels.
And he gets one over left center field. Back-to-back home run.
Fresh gear. Right here.
Right here.
On inside.
Your one-stop shop for adventure in 2026.
Oh! Suneski Sports.
Suneski Sports.
What the fuck? You better pull over and see.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
In late September, East and West Germany overwhelmingly voted in favor of reuniting the two countries, which had been separated since Germany's unconditional surrender in 1945. The measure passed with a vote of 442 in favor and 47 against.
Step out the pit, all you can do is put me on a little guilt
I can
trip.
explain that, all right?
Hey, I lent you my girlfriend. You made a move on her.
You made a move on Kevin?
Nothing happened. Then you send your little sex freak over to my house trying to look for some kind of handout.
It's temporary insanity, all right? I wasn't thinking with my head.
You weren't thinking at all.
Hold on a second. Let's back up to the part about the sex freak.
Humphrey the Humpback Whale may not be as popular as Free Willy, but on October 24th, he became a celebrity in his own right.
I saw his tail come up out of the water, and it was right past the Golden Gate Bridge.
During his long seasonal migration from Mexico to Alaska, Humphrey decided to take a pit stop in the San Francisco Bay. Humphrey stayed for 3 days and then was lured back on his way by the marine mammal setter, who played the smooth, jazzy sounds of other humpback whales.
Red Lobster.
Tonight, 30 shrimp, just $8.95.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover in you.
And kids get shrimp, a complete meal, just $1.95.
We go to Saudi Arabia, where on November 6th, a group of women protesters drove through the streets of Riyadh as an act of defiance to the government ban on women driving cars. Unfortunately, this act of civil disobedience cost them deeply. The women were arrested, removed from their jobs, and banned from traveling. Subsequently, the Interior Minister, Prince Naif bin Abdulaziz, officially banned women from operating motorized vehicles. This stayed law until 2017, when King Salman announced an order allowing women to drive. Driver's licenses for women were issued the following year. In mid-November, Bret Easton Ellis's book, American Psycho, was supposed to be published by Simon & Schuster, but was pulled over aesthetic differences after a public outcry that the book was deemed too violent. The book would eventually be picked up by Vintage Books and would go on to sell over 1 million copies. Nearly 10 years later, the movie American Psycho, starring Christian Bale, made its debut.
Hey, Paul!
Speaking of psychos,
Home Alone.
I don't care if I have to get out on the runway and hitchhike. I am going to get home to my son.
coming back to literature, a sad passing, as acclaimed children's book author Roald Dahl died on November 23rd. Author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, BFG, and countless others, Dahl's books worldwide have sold over 250 million copies. And fun fact, Roald was also the screenwriter of the James Bond film, You Only Live Twice.
You dirty bird. How could you?
Misery.
Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
Misery Spirit is still alive.
I don't want her back! I want her! And you murdered her!
In the landmark case of Cruzan versus Director, Missouri Department of Health, Nancy Beth Cruzan, who was in a persistent vegetative state, was being kept alive by a life support system. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court allowed Nancy's parents the right to terminate the use of her feeding tubes that were administering her nutrition and hydration. Just 3 days before Christmas, Lech Walesa took the oath of office as Poland's first popularly elected president. Previous to Walesa, Ryszard Kaczorowski had ended his term by living in exile in London. Walesa, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, would go on to serve as president from 1990 to 1995. Just after Christmas, the U.S. Census was released, and America was getting pretty big, with a grand total of 249.6 million people. And that is how 1990 ended.
Patsy Gilmore.
1999 was just days away, and America would see itself on the precipice of war. Racial tensions would boil over in the City of Angels, and we would find out what goes well with fava beans and a nice Chianti. But that is for next year. 1991, year 2 in the 90s. 91 would be a time when Saddam Hussein would feel the wrath of coalition aircraft. A king would be beaten in front of a shocked country, and a shadow would be cast over the world. Watch yourself, she's a wild one. We're going to talk about the news, culture, sports, and entertainment, and all that was weird in the 90s. This is Timeline. This one's going to be fun because it's all about 1991. Now, are you ready for 91?
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
You forgot to say please. This is 1991.
It's busy, and eating out just to save time gets expensive. That's why I keep Healthy Choice Simply Steamers on hand at all times. It's half the price of eating out.
1991. The year started with a leadoff hit when on January 7th, Major League Baseball's all-time hits leader, Pete Rose, was released from a minimum security prison. Charlie Hustle, who had been serving 5 months for federal income tax evasion, took it to the halfway house called Talbot House, where residents typically shared their room with 2 or 3 other people. A little over a week later, on January 16th, the winds of war kicked up when President George H.W. Bush announced the commencement of Operation Desert Storm. The attack began within hours, with waves of coalition warplanes attacking targets in and around Iraq. Besides military targets, American forces also bombed strategic locations like Iraq oil refineries, the international airport, and even the presidential palace of President Saddam Hussein. I wonder if homeowners insurance covers that. Just 2 days later, on January 18th, 13,000 fans showed up at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City, Utah to watch AC/DC perform. The band was playing the recent hit Thunderstruck when the crowd surged toward the stage. Security guards lost control, and at least a half a dozen people were injured in the ensuing panic. 3 of those people who were taken from the concert later died. The disaster was later blamed on festival seating practices. In late January, Coach Bill Parcells and his New York Giants faced off against Coach Marv Levy and the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 25. With heightened fears because of the ongoing Gulf War, the game, which was attended by almost 74,000 people, was played under high security at Tampa Stadium in Florida. The game is most famous because of a missed field goal, slicing right of the goalpost by Bills kicker Scott Norwood. The Giants won it 20-19.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
We go to San Francisco, where on Valentine's Day, the Bay City's landmark domestic partnerships law went into effect. While domestic partnerships were mostly symbolic and lacked most of the legal trappings of legal marriage, it was still widely considered a victory for gay rights. 500 people took advantage of the law on the first day, registering 250 domestic partnerships. The celebration was followed by a procession down the stairway beneath the City Hall dome, in which the couple's names were read off one by one. 2 days later, on February 16th, we go to the U.S. Female Figure Skating Championship,
Tonya
which was
Harding.
won by figure skater Tonya Harding. Tonya, also became the first American woman to land a triple axel in a competition. We may hear later in the decade from Tonya and her crew. On February 26th, the Gulf War allies liberated the capital of Kuwait after 208 days of Iraqi occupation. A reconnaissance team made up of 12 U.S. Marines who had been ushered in by Kuwaiti resistance forces were the first allies to make it to the city center. Meanwhile, Iraqi troops, under orders from Saddam Hussein, began to withdraw by the thousands. On their way out of Kuwait, the Iraqis set hundreds of oil wells on fire in an effort to destroy the Kuwaiti economy. Heading into March, where on the 2nd, singer Serge Gainsbourg died. During his lifetime, Gainsbourg was regarded as the most important musician in the style known as French pop. A singer, songwriter, pianist, and film composer, Gainsbourg also dabbled in other mediums like poetry, painting, writing, acting, and directing. Serge also had a fondness for unfiltered cigarettes, which his 5-pack-a-day habit may have led to the heart attack that killed him. The next day, on March 3rd, 4 Los Angeles police officers were caught on film beating up taxi driver Rodney King. Police had pursued King, who was intoxicated and had attempted to flee from them. The video, shot from across the street by bystander George Holliday, showed the 4 officers hitting King with their batons 53 times. The video was a seminal moment highlighting the relationship between race and policing. We'll see more of the follow-up from the officers involved in 1992. In mid-March at 2 a.m., tragedy struck the country music world when 7 members of Reba McEntire's band were killed in a plane crash in San Diego, California, along with 3 others. Investigations later showed that the pilot, unfamiliar with the territory he was flying through, flew at an altitude that was too low. Just a few moments after takeoff, the left wing clipped an outcropping of Otay Mountain, where the plane crashed and exploded. It was just a few days later, on March 22nd, that high school teacher Pamela Smart, who manipulated her 15-year-old student lover, Billy Flynn, into whacking her ex-husband, was convicted of being an accomplice to first-degree murder, conspiracy, and witness tampering. The Exeter, New Hampshire jury deliberated for 14 days before returning the verdict, and Smart was later sentenced to life in prison. The very next day, halfway across the country, we go to Tennessee, where raging thunderstorms spawned 20 tornadoes, which were reported in southwest Tennessee and southeast Kentucky. 5 people were killed, scores more were injured, and countless homes, trees, and automobiles were reduced to rubble.
Jesus H. Christ. This is my post. All right, put it down. Put it down. And these are the post provisions. All right, now get your ass off the wagon
Tombstone.
and help me unload. We're just having a conversation. Put it down.
In late March, the soccer world was rocked by news that Diego Maradona of Argentina had tested positive for drug use and would be suspended from play for as many as 2 years. Only a year earlier, Maradona had led Argentina to its second consecutive World Cup final and Napoli to its second Italian League championship.
That's cool. That's kind of... I don't know about that part.
Championship. Moving into
I forgot
April,
about that.
disaster struck again when a plane collided in midair with a helicopter over Marion, Pennsylvania, a suburb northwest of Philadelphia. 7 people died, including United States Senator John Hines. Hines, whose family were the heirs of the Hines Food Company, was the sole passenger aboard the plane, which had been experiencing problems with its landing gear. A helicopter in the area was enlisted to help determine if the landing gear was down or not, but it came too close to the plane, and the 2 aircraft collided. Hines's widow, Teresa, would carry on his philanthropic endeavors and later married Senator John Kerry. In mid-April, the world lost. Legendary film director
John
David
Kerry?
Lynch, who passed away on April 16th.
I'm gonna just play that. I'm gonna rewind that again.
To help determine if the landing.
I just want to run that back.
Argentina to its
That whole
second
Mr.
consecutive
Hines.
World Cup final, and Napoli to its second Italian League championship. Moving into April, disaster struck again when a plane collided in midair with a helicopter over Marion, Pennsylvania, a suburb northwest of Philadelphia. 7 people died, including United States Senator John Hines. Hines, whose family were the heirs of the Hines Food Company, was the sole
Senator John Hines, who was over the Hines Food Company. His wife kept the name going, business going, but married Senator John Kerry. I'm gonna have to do my research on that to see how long after did she marry John Kerry.
Passenger aboard the plane, which had been experiencing problems with its landing gear. A helicopter in the area was enlisted to help determine if the landing gear was down or not, but it came too close to the plane, and the 2 aircraft collided. Hines's widow, Teresa, would carry on his philanthropic endeavors and later married Senator John Kerry. In mid-April, the world lost legendary film director David Lean, who passed away on April 16th. Considered one of the greatest directors of all time, the 83-year-old British filmmaker won Oscars for Best Director for films Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia, as well as directing classic films such as Dr. Zhivago and A Passage to India. Heading into May, President George H.W. Bush was taken to Bethesda Naval Medical Center after experiencing an irregular heartbeat. The 66-year-old president, who had been jogging with Secret Service agents at Camp David, had complained about shortness of breath. Bush was held overnight at the hospital for observation, but tests showed that other than the irregular heartbeat, he was in good condition. Bush would eventually be diagnosed with a thyroid condition named Graves' disease. On May 15th, real life imitated art, or at least the movie Naked Gun. when the real Queen Elizabeth went to a Major League Baseball game. Fresh out of the hospital, President Bush took Her Majesty to a game between the Baltimore Orioles and the Oakland Athletics. The Queen also got to meet MLB stars Tony La Russa, Jose Canseco, and Cal Ripken Jr. That must have been enough for the Queen Mum, because she departed after the second inning. Baseball, it's no cricket. Moving into June, every parent's worst nightmare came true when 11-year-old J.C. Lee Dugard was abducted while walking to a school bus stop near her home. Dugard remained missing until August of 2009, when she was discovered in the custody of Philip and Nancy Garrido. During her kidnapping, Dugard had given birth to 2 daughters, who were 11 and 15 at the time of her reappearance. Philip Garrido was sentenced to 431 years to life in prison, while his wife only got 36 years. California lawmakers approved a $20 million payment to Dugard and her 2 children. Dugard would later write a book about her experience called A Stolen Life, a memoir.
Welcome to a destination full of flavor. Enjoy freshly ground bean
Experience called A Stolen Life, a memoir. Back to 91, and on June 12th, a dynasty began when Michael Jordan won his first NBA championship with the Chicago Bulls, beating the Los Angeles Lakers 3-1. Jordan led all scorers with 31 points per game, while dishing out 11.4 assists. Oh, Jordan also hit this iconic shot.
13
On the same day as
consecutive.
the Bulls' victory, Boris Yeltsin won the first ever democratic election for Russian Federation president, defeating Mikhail Gorbachev's preferred candidate, Nikolai Rashkov. Yeltsin's campaign was directed at fighting against what he called the dictatorship of the center, which was his way of positioning himself as a clear alternative to Gorbachev and the Communist Party. Yeltsin would serve as president until 1999, and by the time he left office, he was a controversial figure who was generally unpopular with the Russian people. In mid-June, Michael Bolton's song Love is a Wonderful Thing peaked at number 4 on the Hot 100 charts. The song was included on Bolton's album Time, Love, and Tenderness, which would go on to sell 16 million copies worldwide. Good. The song prompted the Isley Brothers to file a lawsuit for copyright infringement. They also had a song called Love is a Wonderful Thing, but they recorded and released it in 1964. Bolton claimed he had never heard the Isley Brothers song, but a jury disagreed and granted the Isleys the largest plagiarism settlement in the history of the music industry, ordering Bolton to fork over $5 million of the song's profits. Justice. Speaking of crime, just 4 days later, Pablo Escobar, the head of the Medellin cartel, was taken into custody by Colombian authorities. Escobar, who was one of the most wanted men in the world, negotiated his surrender for a month with an 82-year-old Catholic priest. He finally agreed to turn himself in after an assembly rewrote the Colombian constitution to ban extradition. The drug kingpin was taken to a luxurious private prison on the outskirts of Medellin. We may hear more from the Narcos King later in the decade. For you true historical crime fans out there, on June 26th, Kentucky's chief medical examiner put a persistent conspiracy theory to rest when he announced the results of tests conducted to determine U.S. President Zachary Taylor's cause of death. Some had suspected that the 12th president, who died in 1850 at the age of 65, was poisoned by Southern politicians because he opposed extending slavery into the western states. Taylor's body was exhumed and DNA samples were taken, but no foul play was discovered. Taylor's real death was the result of any of a myriad of natural diseases which could have produced the symptoms of gastroenteritis. Mystery solved.
Hasta la vista, baby.
July 11th brought what astronomers refer to as a total solar eclipse of the sun. A solar eclipse is when the moon passes between the sun and the earth, obscuring the image of the sun in whole or in part. A total solar eclipse is when the moon's perceived diameter is larger than the sun's, blocking all direct sunlight and literally turning day into night. The darkness moves in a narrow path across the Earth's surface, with a partial solar eclipse visible over a region thousands of miles wide. This total solar eclipse first cast its shadow over the Pacific Ocean and Hawaii, and moved across Mexico down through Central America, finally ending over Brazil. The darkness lasted as long as 7 minutes in some places, and according to astronomers, the Earth won't see a longer total eclipse until June 13th, 2132.
That was a lot. We just saw one in 2024.
That's what happens when the property value of a certain area is brought down. Huh? You listening? Yeah.
On the last day of July, the United States Senate voted to lift a ban against women flying combat missions for the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. At the time, women were already working as test pilots for jet fighters, training U.S. combat pilots and flying transports, tankers, and other military aircraft. It took 3 hours of debate, but in the end, the measure was approved 96-3. Moving into August, Metallica released its 5th studio album. Technically titled Metallica, the record is now better known as the Black Album. It contained future classics like Enter Sandman, Nothing Else Matters, The Unforgiven, and Sad But True, almost all of which spawned hit music videos as well. The album debuted at number 1, selling 598,000 copies in its first week, and was certified platinum in just 2 weeks, and then spent 4 consecutive weeks atop the Billboard 200. The very next day, on August 13th, the man behind the Barbie doll, Jack Ryan, died. Ryan also invented other classic toys like Hot Wheels cars and Chatty Cathy dolls, and held over 1,000 patents as VP of Research and Design for the toy giant Mattel. But Ryan designed a lot more than just toys. The inventor also designed Sparrow and Hawk missiles for Raytheon, and was once married to Zsa Zsa Gabor. Now, that's a life. On August 15th, Paul Simon gave a free show in New York's Central Park. Park shows were common in the 1970s and 80s, when acts like James Taylor, Elton John, and Jefferson Airplane played, but became unpopular after gangs and hooligans run amok following the 1983 Diana Ross concert. Backed by a 17-piece band, Simon drew 750,000 New Yorkers to the show. Simon later said that the concert was the biggest thrill of his career. Sticking with music, on August 27th, Seattle band Pearl Jam introduced itself to the world with its debut album, 10. Made up of former members of the Love Bone and of then unknown Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam's first album featured hits like Alive, Even Flow, Jeremy, and Black. At first, it received a lukewarm reception, and sales were slow. But by January of '92, it would enter the U.S. albums chart, where it would stay until 1996, selling over 10 million copies in that time. How appropriate. The name 10 actually refers to the band's favorite NBA player's jersey number, who was Atlanta Hawk guard Mookie Blaylock.
Now, these decisions should be easy, but if you take a look inside Herman's head, you'll see why he sometimes has trouble making up his mind.
On September 13th, Montreal's Olympic Stadium was rattled when a 55-ton slab of concrete fell from the roof of the Olympic Stadium's walkway. Officials would go on to blame complications caused by nearby construction of a soccer stadium. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the stadium was immediately closed for repairs, and the Montreal Expos had to play all of their remaining MLB games for the season on the road. Dommage.
You know, I don't think women understand the feeling. Rawhide and steel, vice grip and monkey plier, dado, head cut, flat jig, miter jig, box hot glue.
Come on with the ad.
On September 19th, 2 Germans accidentally made a prehistoric discovery on an alpine glacier right near the Austrian-Italian border. It was a well-preserved man who would eventually become known to the world as Ötzi. He was at first mistaken for someone who recently passed, and authorities clumsily extracted him using ice axes and jackhammers. Researchers in Zurich quickly determined that Ötzi was a 45-year-old man who died about 5,300 years ago. They also found an arrowhead in his shoulder and concluded that he may have been killed as part of a raiding party. Scientists determined Ötzi naturally mummified after being covered with ice shortly after meeting his demise. 5 days later, Seattle music struck when Nirvana released their second studio album, Nevermind. The album is now hailed as one of the most influential albums of the 90s.
With a baby on there.
Grunge charge, with hits
A
like
naked baby.
Come As You Are, Lithium, In Bloom, and of course, Smells Like Teen Spirit. In its lifetime, Nevermind has sold over 30 million copies. September 24th was an incredible day for music. because on the same day, Queens hip-hop group A Tribe Called Quest released The Low End Theory. Now widely considered to be one of the greatest and most influential records of all time, The Low End Theory debuted to critical acclaim. While there was some initial doubts about its commercial potential, those didn't last long. Singles like Check the Rhyme, Jazz We've Got, and Scenario, and by February of '92, the album.
I was jamming to that. I was sitting here and listening to that music in the background.
On September 28th, it would be a sad day
Miles
for the
Davis
jazz
died.
world when legendary trumpeter Miles Davis died. The Juilliard dropout, Miles joined up with Charlie Parker's quintet early in his career in 1945. He would go on to revolutionize the sound of jazz multiple times on landmark albums like 1949's The Birth of Cool and 1970's Bitches Brew. Most impressively, his 1959 album, Kinda Blue, to this day remains the best-selling jazz album of all time. Heading into October, televangelist Jimmy Swaggart was pulled over by police for driving his Jaguar on the wrong side of the road. The 56-year-old preacher was found in the company of a woman named Rosemary Garcia, who later told the media that she was, in fact, a lady of the night. Oh, Jimmy. Swaggart, who sat at the head of a $150 million a year religious empire, had previously been caught being a John. This time, Swags would have to step down as head of his ministries. On the same day, during confirmation hearings for Clarence Thomas, President Bush's Supreme Court nominee, University of Oklahoma Law School professor Anita Hill went before the Senate Judiciary Committee and testified that Clarence Thomas had sexually harassed her. She testified that Thomas had repeatedly asked her out, used work situations to discuss sex, women having sex with animals, and often bragged about his own sexual prowess. Thomas, who was the second African American in the history of the court to be nominated, famously characterized the proceedings as a high-tech lynching. Ultimately, he was confirmed by 41 Republican and 11 Democrat senators. Staying on October 11th, the comedy world said farewell to funny man Red Fox. Born John Elroy Sanford in 1922, the notoriously foul-mouthed comic honed his craft on the Chitlin circuit of black nightclubs during the 1940s and 50s. Fox's stand-up influenced generations of comedians. Red also became a household name starring on the
Is that why Jamie
Sanford
Foxx
and Son,
changed his
which
name to
aired on
Jamie
NBC
Foxx?
from 1972 to 1977.
And not Eric Bishop?
Later in life, he regularly headlined in Las Vegas and starred alongside Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor in the 1989 film Harlem Nights. In late October, legendary screenwriter and producer Eugene Wesley Gene Roddenberry died. Roddenberry is best known for being the creator of Star Trek, which debuted in 1966 and ran for 3 seasons before being canceled. It found new life in syndication and the movies, and Roddenberry would continue to create, produce, and consult on Star Trek films and television series for the rest of his life. Flash forward to April 21st, 1997, where a Celestis spacecraft carrying portions of Roddenberry's cremated remains was launched into Earth orbit aboard a Pegasus XL rocket. Heading into November, British newspaper magnate Robert Maxwell was found floating dead near his yacht off the Canary Islands. The media tycoon, whose holdings included companies like the New York Daily News, Macmillan Publishing, and the Daily Mirror in London, was born Jan Ludwig Hyman Benjamin Hoch in Czechoslovakia. An Orthodox Jew who escaped the Nazi occupation, he eventually fought with the British Army, which gave him the name Robert Maxwell. He would go on to serve in Parliament, and in the 1970s, he was recruited by Israel to work as a spy. After his death, huge discrepancies were found in his company's finances, including hundreds of millions of dollars that Maxwell had stolen from pension funds. Even more notable, Maxwell's daughter is none other than Ghislaine Maxwell, groomer to the wealthy. Check out our Timeline 2020 video if you want more of her whereabouts.
Epstein's
Now,
wife.
A local tax expert will do your taxes for $150 all in. No catch.
20 video if you want more of her whereabouts. 2 days later, on November 7th, NBA legend Magic Johnson shocked the world when he announced that he was retiring from basketball because he had tested positive for HIV. Considered one of the greatest players in NBA history, the lifetime Los Angeles Lakers star signed a 25-year, $25 million contract in 1981. After his retirement, Johnson still played in 1992's NBA All-Star Game, as well as on the famous Olympic Dream Team with fellow superstars Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Patrick Ewing.
That you?
Counselor! I'm out. Come out wherever you are.
On November 18th, Cheyenne Brando, the 21-year-old daughter of screen legend Marlon Brando, was arrested in France and deported to Tahiti. French police had picked up Brando in connection with an arrest warrant issued by a judge in Papeete, Tahiti. Cheyenne had been charged with complicity in the murder of her boyfriend, Dag Drolet, who was killed by her brother Christian Brando on May 16, 1990, at Marlon Brando's Hollywood mansion. Christian, who would plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Cheyenne would take her own life on April 16, 1995, at her mother's house in Punaui, Tahiti. On November 24th, just one day after confirming the rumors that he had contracted AIDS, Zanzibar-born Queen frontman Freddie Mercury died at the age of 45. Along with guitarist Brian May, bassist John Deacon, and drummer Roger Taylor, Mercury helped to create a unique musical mixture of hard rock, pop, glam, cabaret, and opera. Songs like We Are the Champions, Killer Queen, Another One Bites the Dust, and Bohemian Rhapsody would make Queen one of the most popular rock bands, and the centerpiece of 1985's Live Aid concert.
Magic.
On November 28th, 23-year-old Egyptian-born model and nanny Omaima Nelson
comes out with AIDS.
56-year-old
He
husband,
dies
William
from AIDS.
Nelson, in their Costa Mesa, California apartment. According to Omaima, Bill had assaulted her earlier in the day. As a response, she later used scissors and a clothes iron to take her husband out. And like a mobster, she chopped him up. Then, oddly enough, mixed up his body parts with leftover turkey and disposed of the mixture in the family garbage disposal. According to neighbors, the disposal unit was running for hours after the time of Bill's death.
Damn.
Leftovers? No, I'm full, thank you. Moving into December, Charles Keating, chairman of the Lincoln Savings and Loan Association, was convicted of 17
If I'm not
counts of
mistaken,
fraud,
Jeffrey
racketeering,
Dahmer
and
happened around this time too.
Lincoln acquired Lincoln Savings and Loan and promptly looted its assets, while Keating used his sales personnel to convince depositors to put their money into high-risk junk bonds. The scandal remains the largest savings and loan collapse in history and cost American taxpayers almost $2.6 billion. After hearing from several of his victims, mostly elderly retired people, the judge sentenced Keating to 10 years in prison and to pay a $250,000 fine. Keating ultimately only served 4.5 years. On December 21st, media tycoon and CNN founder Ted Turner married Jane Fonda on a ranch near Caps, Florida, about 20 miles outside of Tallahassee. The relationship ratings were good until a decade later, when the couple divorced in 2001, when Fonda's Christian faith had come between them. In a 2008 memoir, Turner clarified he was upset at Fonda's decision to convert without consulting him first. Marriage is about communication, people. Let your loved one know you're going to convert. And finally, on the last day of the year, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, better known as the USSR, was officially dissolved. The disintegration of the Russian state had been a long time coming and became inevitable after a failed coup the previous August. The former world superpower fractured into its 15 separate countries: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. And that's how 1991 ended. 1992 was just hours away. It would be a year where a champ would go on trial, a city of angels would burn, and the mother of all malls would open. But that is for next year. Coming soon, 1992.
Those guys are heathens.
Yeah.
Animalistic.
Yeah, they're holding the jungle back, Tiger.
Jungle? No.
Yes, sir.
I think the defendants are jungle people.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty of the crime of assault by force likely to produce great bodily injury and with a deadly weapon.
1992, a year when America's temper boiled over. 92 would be a year of political change, the end of an era of a comedy giant, and when our soda taste would go clear. We're going to talk about the news, culture, sports, and entertainment, and all that was weird in the 90s. This is Timeline.
That might be a good place to stop and upload. And that's what I'm gonna do. So y'all go be great. How long y'all been on live? Yep. Y'all go be great. Go be guys and goddesses. I'm going to shut this down, upload it so I can put it on YouTube. And I'll come back and I'll finish 92. We're going to get through 92. We're going to probably, depending on how I feel, I might do all 4 hours and bust it down. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So let me shut this down and upload it.